right, are we live? Can you hear me, Jay?
I can. Hi.
All right, we've got a little bit of a lag, but it'll catch up with us. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first In This Together event, aka the quarantine version of Connection, aka the biggest MOPS meeting ever. Jay, I miss you so much. How are you doing?
So much. I want time with you and a big bowl of steaming pho.
Oh, our tradition. That is such our tradition.
After I watch you put a ton of jalapenos in it and chili paste and change the whole flavor of the pho. Just drink the broth as is, as it comes to your table, while you wipe your nose and snot because it's so good.
Oh my god. Okay, all right, chill. Well, for those of you who are just now tuning in, this is our kickoff event to our weekly, every Tuesday MOPS meetings online, and we are so excited. So my name is Emma. I am part of the creative team here at MOPS, and I am joined by Janella, who is everyone's favorite person, is her accurate title. And also the senior events manager at MOPS. And we are so excited to be with you guys. We're just gonna give everyone a few minutes to hop online. And Jay, where are you watching from right now?
It's so good to see everyone. I'm in my living room right now. I am enjoying being able to hop from the dining room to the living room. It's been fun. It's your Be a Good Person mug. I love it.
Well, for everyone tuning in, if you guys could also just comment your MOPS group that you're a part of. If you're a part of one, you don't have to be a part of a MOPS group to be a part of our community, but yeah, show your MOPS pride. Jay, what MOPS group are you repping?
I am repping the Cherry Hills Young MOPS group, where Shumay and Andrea are some of the best coordinators on the planet, and we get to support and encourage our young moms who teach us stuff every day. They know how to do community. So I want to say hi to them. Yeah, you guys, let us know what MOPS group you're from. And if you're not a part of a MOPS group, you need to become a part of a MOPS group. But let us know where you're from and where you are in your house right now, chatting with us. This is going to be fun.
Got some military MOPS groups, military MOPS in England, Columbine MOPS.
April from Montreal.
So fun. Well, guys, I thought since this is our first ever MOPS meeting all together like this, I thought we could do an icebreaker. And I think there's two types of people in the world: people who dread icebreakers and people who
I love icebreakers.
And people who love icebreakers, crazy people. No, I'm just kidding. But so here's what I thought we'd do for everyone in the comments. Guys, I see all of you commenting. I love it. So everybody watching, think of the most ridiculous thing your child has done maybe in the last week or two, and just comment what that thing is. Only instead of saying my child, put my coworker, because I'm pretty sure it's a full-time job to be quarantined at home with children. And oh yeah, we've got so many MOPS groups too.
So many.
And we're gonna go ahead and do a giveaway for this icebreaker. So we're gonna give away some Decide to Rise merch. Our Decide to Rise theme t-shirt is adorable, and we're gonna choose a winner from the comments. So once again, comment the most ridiculous thing your child has done in the last week and replace it with my coworker. So what is your child doing? Your grown child, Janella?
You know, it's not anything crazy. It's something I'm super proud of. She is making masks. She has a friend who's a nurse at a local hospital who has requested masks. So she's making upwards of 300. And so I'm gonna hop on my sewing machine in a couple days to start helping her. Yeah, pretty proud of her. She's working hard.
Meanwhile, Karna's coworker has been putting his pants on his head. That's not ideal.
Sounds a little delirious, that kid.
My coworker peed on the floor, won't let me go to the bathroom alone. I can't even keep up with these. My coworker peed on the front door welcome mat. Oh man.
That's a welcome. Now that is a welcome.
Marking his territory.
I cried because I gave her a kiss. My dog pooped in the yard and brought it to me today. Serious.
All right.
I have a more serious question for you.
Okay.
What is your antidote for feeling isolated and alone? Being in the house, kind of against our will, really, and stuck. What are you doing to combat that?
That's a great question. I mean, other than this technology stuff, like Zoom has been saving me, FaceTime, it's a really good substitute. I think it's just like getting my mind right. So the fact that we can still go outdoors is huge. And I've always been that person who doesn't like going on walks. Like, why would I do that? I'm good. And now I'm like enjoying my walks because it gets my mind right.
Yeah.
So I don't believe the lie of feeling disconnected or like I'm going crazy or anything like that. So probably walks, which is weird.
Definitely.
How about you?
Yeah, it's a good time for I think we have these pros and cons to technology and the good and the bad, but right now it's just so good. Seeing what others are doing and creating and being able to communicate. We've been having a ton of family Zoom calls, which have been amazing, just to laugh and giggle at each other. And I'm realizing it's face to face. You're actually looking at the person's face for their expression, for their the ebb and flow in their voice. Where I know if I were standing next to them, you kind of get distracted by other things, right? So it's kind of forcing you to look them in the eye and give them that undivided attention, which is really cool. So yeah, it's been really good. And I am binging That's So Raven off of Disney Plus.
That's amazing. That's a great show. That was like my childhood. That's amazing. Okay, so as everyone has probably heard, we're doing this every single Tuesday, so make sure you mark your calendars for April 14th, next Tuesday. We'll send you guys Facebook invites. And basically what we're doing with this is we are standing up to isolation and fear and loneliness and despair, and we're fighting it with joy and connecting with each other in the ways that we're able to right now. And so we know we've got strength in numbers here. That's the name of the game. And so here's what the next less than an hour or so is going to look like. So we're going to start off with a super fun conversation between our CEO, who we love so much, Mandy, and a surprise guest who you'll see in like 2 minutes. So just tune in for that.
I still can't even.
I know. And then we've got Tracy Foster, who is the co-founder of START, which stands for Stand Together and Rethink Technology. That's the acronym for START, excuse me. And they're basically just helping parents navigate technology, and they're doing an excellent job doing that. What does that look like in a quarantine? I mean, it was hard before this, and so how are we supposed to manage technology when we just talked about this is the thing that connects us? I don't know where Janella went, but that's okay. And then to close, we are actually bringing in some living room worship. And so make sure you stick to the end, put your volume on loud. Music can be a weapon against the things that hurt us. And so if you've got other stuff to do around the house, just keep the music on while you feed the kiddos or get dressed or clean or whatever it may be. It's super, super special. That's from our friends, the Hardcastles. And so this is going to be the bomb. I don't know where Janella went, but that's okay. We are going to keep going. We've got Mandy and our surprise guest, who you are going to see in about 5 to 10 seconds. So please give a warm welcome and an emoji round of applause to our friend, Mr. Janella. You want to give his name?
it literally across my screen said connection lost. I'm like, no. Oh my gosh. So
We've been waiting.
to welcome our forever friend, Bob Goff.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you guys.
Good to see
hey,
you.
moms out there. Thanks for loving your families. It can be a hard time, but I'm proud of you. So glad to be together.
Oh gosh. Bob, I feel like we need to hear from you now more than ever before, because you have this unique gift of reframing perspective and giving us a new way of seeing life. And as you know, we're all experiencing something that we've never experienced before. And so we're in uncharted waters. And I keep asking myself, how, when I look back on the quarantine, do I want to feel about it? What do I want my kids to remember? How do I want to navigate this? And so do you have any ideas or perspective for how we quarantine well?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. I'll just say, get that out of the way, and just to validate what you're all feeling. We've all had this range of emotions, and so to understand these, a great friend of mine, Miles Adcox, he's always been telling me that our minds can only fix the things that it can see. And so these words have been resonating for me. And so take this time to just say, so what am I feeling? Just be in touch with your emotions, but don't be imprisoned by them. Understand them, see them, and then say, what's the way forward? Because that's the people that are following Jesus are just constantly trying to do this. Mandy, I've been talking to you and my other friends for years about wanting to be home. All this time,
with your grandbaby.
Heaven just leaned over the rails and said, what's your second wish? Like, no. So I think one of the things is that that we have is an opportunity. And what we need to do is to sort out all the laundry that's over covering that opportunity, and to say, what do we really have here? I'm not saying put a smiley face on it. There's some parts of it that are really stink. Loved ones that have been lost, really difficult times. There's not been a day that's gone by in the last couple of weeks I haven't spent time on the phone with somebody who's lost somebody that day that they've loved a lot. And so we could be fully present in what we're doing, but also sync up our lives. Moms, if you have a copy of Peter Pan, get it out. I'm telling you, I've been reading Peter Pan all over again. Remember Peter Pan, he gets disconnected at some point with his shadow. Remember, I think he gets caught in the window, and his shadow starts doing one thing. Peter Pan starts doing something else. And remember how he gets reconnected to his shadow? Wendy. Yeah, she sews back the shadow to his feet. I want you guys to do that with your kids. I want you to do that. Some of you are married to a husband like me that's just ricocheting off the wall and say, slow down, I'm going to sew your shadow back onto you. And it's just that moment of intentionality. It's that moment of de-escalating some of the tension that you might be feeling. It's being authentic, and then just having a perspective on this thing. It's going up above and looking down at the operating room table and saying, what's actually going on here? And I'm thinking about the story of the demon-possessed guy where Jesus goes across the lake, and then he takes all the crazy in that guy and he throws it into the herd of pigs, remember? And the pigs go over the cliff. Well, it was a terrific day for the demon-possessed guy, but it was a lousy day for the farmer. Could you imagine going home like, how was your day at work? And you're like, well, remember Jesus came across and all of our pigs are now over the cliff. So I know that what's happening in our lives, there's going to be some times where we feel disconnected. It's like our shadow went one way, we went the other way. And what we're going to use is our faith to knit them back together again. You need to see it to understand the disconnect. And that's what will happen. Satan doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. And so I want us to live lives undistracted, being able to see what's really going on. There's a wedding planner that's praying for some sunshine. There's a farmer that's praying for some rain. And if it rains, it doesn't mean he doesn't like the bride. It's just doing something different in someone else's life than he happens to be doing in yours. So let me ask you, what is Jesus Christ doing in your life? I want you to knit your shadow back to your feet. I want you to be fully present where you are, and then understand the power of Scripture. Don't just like read this stuff and let it ricochet off you, but this is that time where it says, are you worried? Look at the flowers. I want you to actually go in the backyard, get a magnifying glass, and look closely at something. Sometimes you're so busy doing all this stuff that you just don't do it. Don't have your kids burn ants with that magnifying glass. But just say, dude, I want you to take 5 minutes today, and if it ain't raining, actually, even if it is, lie down on the grass and look up and just be at peace. And I'm telling you, Jesus will meet you in those times. You just sewed your shadow back onto your feet.
So good. So refreshing and so broadening of our perspective related to the things that are going on. And we know that so many people are facing fear or anxiety or disappointment or even job loss or financial instability. And so in light of all of those circumstances, how can we reframe and retrain our perspective to maybe find an unexpected opportunity in the hardships that we're bumping up against day after day?
Yeah, one thing that we each have control over is our availability. If you're feeling alone and isolated, if you're in a difficult circumstance, some of you might be in a really difficult relationship that this is magnifying. Don't be isolated in that. There's women in this collective that are there for you. Get each other your phone numbers offline and be talking. Have 3 minutes of authenticity. Just say, I don't care what it looks like. Let's just talk about what it is. And heaven delights in that. To slow down a little bit, to write down what you're feeling. If you're feeling alone, just write it down. I feel really alone right now. And I'm not saying camp out there. That's not a campsite. That's a launching pad. What we're doing is we're saying, I feel really alone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call somebody, and we should be just available to each other. I got my cell phone number back at 2 million books. So I'm big on being available because it's one thing that we control in a time that we feel like we can't control everything we want to. And it'll be the small things that'll make the big difference in people's lives. And your availability will be one of the things that people will remember. People will look back at spring of 2020 and they'll say, tell me about what it was like during that pandemic. And I want to say, you know what my mom did is she got out magnifying glasses, or we made them out of some plastic, and we just looked closely at things. And then what we did is we relied on the power of Scripture. We found some Bible verses, not to have it's not a Sunday school thing. It's just like a perspective thing. I've been studying the miracles that Jesus did. There's 37 of them, actually. And the seventh miracle that he did, it was, the scene, all of the friends are in a room and their buddies are trying to get their friend in front of Jesus. And they can't because the place is packed out. So somebody had a great idea. Let's go through the roof. Now, there's been a bunch of naysayers that said, what about greenhouse gases and what about this and that? But they were just so busy tearing the tiles off the roof that they weren't distracted by all the reasons not to. And they lowered their friend down in front of Jesus. You know how that went. The story ends like this. Jesus said, it's the faith of your friends that have healed you. I'm telling you, people, this is it. It's going to be the faith of our circle of friends that are going to actually be part of healing us. It's going to be what sews the shadow back on our feet again. And that's where we get it. Just its authenticity, its availability through our friends. And the crazy thing is that we think that we're lowering some people in front of Jesus when actually they're lowering us. And so one of the things I want you to do is with your family, with your friends, just to continue to get them before God and find a way to do that over and over again. And we won't always get it right. Some things will go right, some things won't. We're coming up on Easter, right? You know the scene. Jesus is put in the tomb. Mary runs over there, and the stone is rolled away, and she's like, "What have you done with him?" She asked the gardener. It's Jesus. And she said, like, what have they done? And you know what? Jesus didn't embarrass her. He didn't make her feel small about that. You know what he did? He gave the shortest sermon ever. Mary. He said her name. What I want you to do at a really practical level is you're sowing the shadow on your feet again. Say your name. Sally. Betty. Make these prayers to say, God, you know my name, even though I'm feeling isolated. And then let a couple friends know how you feel. Let them lower you in front of Jesus again. Let their faith help buoy you during this time. That's where all the good stuff happens. And we're going to mess it up all the time. There's a friend of mine who plays a bunch of music, and there was a big concert. And so before the concert, we got together in this little room behind the stage, and there's another guy in the room, and I didn't recognize him, but we were talking about this and that, and he had just the most piercing eyes, and I'm like, it was just almost creepy. I'm like, stop looking at me. We were in there, I bet, for an hour, and we went outside right before the concert started. People saw him and just lost their minds. They're like, what? And I'm like, what's the deal? Do you know who he was? His name is Jim Caviezel. He's the guy that played Jesus in The Passion. And I didn't know who he was. You guys, I was in the room with Jesus for 1 hour. Didn't even recognize him. But here's the deal. Mary didn't recognize him either. They thought it was the gardener. And Jesus says the same thing to you and me in the middle of all this crazy. Even in the times where you're a little frightened and you don't recognize Jesus, I want you to slow down. Say your name. Call a friend. Let them lower you in front of Jesus. There's something beautiful about that. He isn't mad when we don't recognize him. What he's hoping is that we will, that we'll come to an awareness that he's in our kids. He's in the difficult times. And no better group to do this than with the people that you're together in MOPS. Mandy, I've just been so respecting and appreciating what you're doing in the lives of countless moms. You and your team, you guys need capes to be doing this. I want to speak to you as moms that people won't recognize what you're doing. This idea of following Jesus means a life of being constantly misunderstood. You're going to get misunderstood by your spouse, your kids, all the time, because they aren't recognizing Jesus in you. I didn't recognize Jesus in Jim Caviezel. Mary didn't recognize Jesus at the garden. So don't be discouraged by that. Just assume that that's going to happen. And what I want you to do, I want you to sew your shadow back on. Peter Pan, I hope Amazon goes empty on those things.
I have a feeling they're going to sell out on Peter Pan in about an hour. Yeah, pretty sure of it. Bob, you are such a gift. And we actually have 3 moms who,
Oh, I'm not hearing you. That may be me, but you just keep going. Say that when you want me to talk.
All right, I'm going to give it a shot and see if everybody can hear me. We have 3 moms who have questions for you, Bob. And so, oh, Matt says he can hear me. So 3 people who have questions for you who have sent them in ahead of time. We're going to bring them on the live stream right now.
Hi, guys.
Hey, who is this?
This is Jamie.
Jamie. Hey, thanks for sending in a question for Bob.
Oh, yeah, I was really excited to be asked to do it.
Nice. Okay, what's your question for him? And then we're going to type it on the screen to make sure he can see it.
Okay. My question is, I see a lot of moms dealing with anxiety and depression with the season that we're in right now. I know a lot of moms feel that it's taboo to talk about it. What are some ways that we can encourage other moms to get the help that they need and not feel like a failure for needing that help?
Such a good and important question. Bob, can you hear us yet?
I see so many moms dealing with anxiety and depression, especially with the season we are in right now. I know a lot of moms feel it is taboo to talk about it. What are some ways that we can help encourage other moms to help and not feel like a failure for needing help?
Oh,
Isn't
so good. Are
technology
you guys
amazing?
hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, this is great. We could do like sign language.
Yeah.
But I've got my thing. What you do is you find a workaround, right? This idea of feeling bummed out, man, let your mind see that. But these setbacks, again, they're not campsites. What I want you to do is if it looks like the audio went out, find another way. Like what I want you to do is instead of feeling stuck there, feel empowered. You're a strong, courageous, go for it woman. And you don't need permission from a guy. You don't need permission from someone else. You've got all the permission you need from Jesus Christ himself. And so if we can feel that power, I'm not saying to like get all like worked up and like, go all Tony Robbins on it. I'm just saying, realize that you're strong and courageous. And I'm telling you, guys, sometimes God will use men. He always uses women. Look in the scriptures constantly. Go ahead. Ask your next question.
All right. Next, we have Stephanie, who's going to be joining us with a question. All right, Stephanie, what's your question?
Her name is Stephanie, and she's going to ask, where are you finding inspiration this season?
Oh, you know what I'm doing for a guy who is an author? There's a lot of my friends who are authors that don't auth. They just don't write stuff down. Mandy, are you feeling like you're one of them?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I do is I write down what's going on and what I think about it. Man, this has been such fertile ground because it's so like new, and there's this rush of like feelings of isolation and hope, and then what do you do about the influences in your life? What I'm trying to do is find safe people to be around me, and then I'm trying to let people know what I need. And sometimes as a mom, you're so busy helping everybody else with what they need, you don't get around to saying what you need. And so make that known, make your requests known to God. And the beautiful thing about making your requests known to God is in Ephesians, is that you'll make them known to yourself. By writing these things down, you're actually making it known. Make little flags. We've got a flagpole on the back of the house. Put a chocolate cake. If you need one of those, raise it up the flagpole. If you need carbs, like I need carbos, like whatever it is, make these things known to God and do it by writing it down. I'm telling you, each of you has a book or two in you. We just need to get it out of you.
Awesome. Good question, Stephanie. And lastly,
you.
Lacey.
Chocolate cake. If you need one of those.
All right, Lacey, what's your question?
If you need carbs.
Lacey, can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
There you go. We can hear you. What's your question?
So my question is, what is your favorite funniest childhood memory?
Oh, we better do that again.
Yeah. What is your
What is
funniest memory of your childhood?
Oh, I'll tell you the most heartwarming one. Actually, you guys know my cell phone number, right? 619-985-4747. I'm not kidding. Now you know the host's telephone number.
Well, my question is, what is your
Anytime between
favorite
midnight and 5 a.m. I'm waiting for your call. One of the things that I remember when I was a kid is I was a little short of money. And so a really, really nice guy who owned a store was counting up my money. He figured out I was 1 penny short. So he took my penny, he shined it up, and he told me that shiny pennies are worth 2. Is that crazy? I was in high school before I realized that shiny pennies aren't worth 2. And so if you could do this, we just mailed out, I think, 400 letters Sweet Marie and I wrote with shiny pennies on them to kids, because I just remember what it made me feel like that he took an interest in me. And I just want to replicate that. And so in answer to your question about the most like important memory I have is when somebody took an interest in me. And you can find it in scripture. It's Philippians 2:20. It's Paul talking about Timothy. He says, I don't have anybody like Timothy. He's a guy who takes a genuine interest in the people around him. And so I think as moms, no better way to create those important memories than just taking a genuine interest in the people around you. Some of them bear your last name and others of them don't. But if you got their phone number, call them up.
Well, I know Bob can't hear me, but I just feel like it is such a gift to get to hear from him this morning. So Bob, thank you so much. We love you. Love you, love you. And if you want to hear more from Bob, he has a really fantastic podcast, the Dream Big Framework podcast. Definitely check out. He has a kids book called Love Does for Kids that is incredible and perfect to read to your kids at bedtime during this quarantine when we have all this extra time on our hands. And he's actually has 3 courses that are available on his Dream Big Framework website that he is selling at a discounted price right now, so you might want to check that out, because we all know the more Bob Goff that we can each get in our life, the better. All right, now I have the privilege of introducing our next guest. Tracy Foster is going to talk to us about technology. It's something that we all are struggling with and thinking about right now during the quarantine. And so I am so thrilled that she's joining us today. So without further ado, here's Tracy.
I want to start off with a question. How many of you have read this book, What to Expect When You're Expecting? You can throw the hands up emoji into the comments. Or for those of you who, if you had welcomed a child through adoption, also throw that raise your hand emoji if you read a Karen Purvis book. Okay, I'm imagining you in my minds at your tables, with most of you probably raising your hands and nodding, because most of us in this virtual room have probably read it. What to Expect When You're Expecting is a constant New York Times bestseller, and it is the most iconic, basically must-have book for parents to be. Now, I know there are a lot of different ways to prepare for having a kiddo, but I'm curious, for those of you who did read this book, I'm curious why. I guess you could post it in the comments, or even just think about it in your mind, or think about the others at your table and why you've heard they read it, or why your mother-in-law told you should. But I'm guessing that your reasons for why you read it align with why I read it. Because while I felt extremely excited and so thankful for the incredible privilege of having a baby, just like Jessie Spano from Saved by the Bell, I felt so excited, but also so scared and overwhelmed. I wanted to set this kiddo up for success, and I felt unqualified. I had never babysat, I didn't have younger siblings, and it just felt like new territory. I love to plan, so I thought I'm gonna put together a roadmap. And I talked with friends who had babies already, I talked with my parents, and I turned to books like What to Expect When You're Expecting. It gave me a sense that I had somewhat of a roadmap and could anticipate the likely bumps in the road, key junctures, things like that. Well, I'm here today to talk to you about the next installment that we wish existed in this book series, and we would call it What to Expect When You're Tech-Specting. It's a silly name, but basically, we think about it as, even before quarantine, when you think about screens, we and our kids are in new uncharted territory, and we're looking for a roadmap. I want to share some ideas that may help as you navigate feeling what we call quarantine and screens. Here are a few considerations that I'll share today. One that's overarching, and then 5 tips that align with the letters of our name. We're hoping that that'll make it easier for you to remember. So to begin with, we encourage you, and if you have a spouse or your family, to think about casting a vision. If I'm honest, many of us, I think, are really trying to just survive this quarantine. Thriving amidst this situation, not even a goal on the radar. But at this juncture, when it's going to be weeks, if not months, we invite you to pause and reflect about what potential silver linings or growth opportunities could come. If we think about it, most young children probably won't remember the daily stats about coronavirus or even the phrase flatten the curve. But what they will remember is how their home felt during this pandemic. This is not to add pressure. We're all feeling a lot of stress. It's not about being perfect, never crying, never screaming, or any of those things. But depending upon the age of your kiddos, one thing that we've found that can help is to make a list, be it core values that drive the season like kindness, forgiveness, or maybe a rally cry. Like for any one of you watching Frozen 2, things like do the next right thing. Ask your kids to join you, co-creating a vision for how you want your family to live this season. Then hang up that phrase or those words. It can just be a handwritten Post-it note on the fridge or a Pinterest-inspired art print because you maybe have a lot of time right now. The format doesn't matter, but hang it up in your home as a visual reminder of what your family is striving for, and you can go back to that. Finding Dory, you can say, hey guys, just keep swimming. We know this is hard. Now I'll go through 5 tips. The first one is S. My kids help me with these signs. Start with yourself. This is about modeling digital health habits for your kids. So even before quarantine, studies showed that we look at our phones more than 80 times a day. And based on my own news and social media scrolling since this crisis started, I think those numbers have to have gone up. In order to avoid infobesity, which is basically information overload that causes us to be anxious and distracted from real life, I've dealt with this, we suggest setting maybe a certain number of times each day to check the news, social media, or to respond to phone notifications and group texts so the rest of your time can be more focused on your work or family time at hand, just to focus and simplify. A couple other things we'd suggest during this time would be consider doing a spring cleaning for your phone. One thing there is turn off notifications, those tempting little dings that entice you to just take a quick peek, but then lead us down a rabbit hole. Unless maybe they're texts or calls from real people. Turn off the other notifications. We also talk about Marie Kondoing the people you follow on social media. So does this person actually give me joy? So I've got to say, I am proud. Today I showered, I got dressed, and I have set up the camera so that it is showing the clean portion of the basement. But that's not my quarantine reality. And if you're following people on social media who make quarantine life look like Pollyanna, and if it's making you feel like you aren't enough, consider silencing them or unfollowing them. Also consider silencing group text chains that are just constantly interrupting, and set certain times that you might respond to them. Okay, our second rule of thumb is to consider places that you might designate as device-free zones. We are likely to be on screens a lot more than usual, and it's powerful to define some times and places to recharge and reconnect as a family. If you're looking for a place to start, we suggest the T, tables and bedtimes. Amidst canceled practices, activities, and meetings, more families either get to or are forced to, depending on how you're feeling that day, eat dinner together. And it's amazing. Research shows that family dinners have remarkable benefits. I personally am extremely thankful to say that the research also says that those benefits are not dependent upon it being an organic gourmet meal. What they're dependent upon is focused time. So consider using dinner as a time to check in. Maybe share high, lows, and buffaloes. A high point from the day, a low point, and one thing totally random. Especially fun if you have toddlers. And if you have toddlers, maybe teach them so they can learn about device-free meals, that they're the ones who are actually in charge of collecting mom and dad's phones. And they're the ones who go put them in a basket or on the counter before dinner each night. For any of you old enough with kids to have kids that are old enough to have their own devices, we also suggest the bedtimes part, removing devices from kids' rooms overnight. Even before quarantine, nearly 80% of kids were using their devices when they were supposed to be sleeping, many of them waking up throughout the night for every notification, with sleep as a critical factor of mental and physical health. Like their devices, our kids need to get a good charge overnight, especially now. Our next area is A, accountability. These signs make me so happy. But during this time when kids are on screens probably longer than usual and possibly with less supervision, they're more likely to accidentally stumble into unsavory content. Many of your kiddos are younger than this, but just FYI that now age 10 is the average age of first pornography exposure for kids, with nearly 90% of the scenes portraying violence towards a woman. We strongly recommend installing an internet filter to limit content. You can check out Protect Young Eyes or our website for more information. But depending on the age of your kiddo, you might also want to think about focusing on more what we call gated sources, so things like Disney Plus, PBS Kids, or Netflix, rather than sites that are less managed and more kind of free range like YouTube or TikTok. These ideas are not 100% foolproof, but we think it helps us to sleep better knowing there are some kinds of safety nets in place. But I want to be clear, even though a safety net is there, especially as your kids get older, be warned that mistakes are going to happen. So when your kiddo shares with you an awkward or shocking situation, be thankful they're sharing and don't overreact. Act totally calm. Make it clear you're a safe harbor. They can tell you anything, even if later you need to go into the closet and scream into a pillow. We are so thankful they're coming to share this with you. Our next idea is R. Rhythms are your friend. So in national surveys, families consistently report that screens are the #1 battleground in their home. And during this time of quarantine, we want to encourage you to get ahead of those battles as much as you can by adopting some consistent rhythms for screen use. Let consistent, predictable patterns be what I say is be the bad guy, so you don't have to as much. For example, once kids know that there will be no screens before noon or whatever time, or that your family rhythm is brain time, chores, screen time, outdoors, then they're less likely to nag. And I know I feel so relieved by having to make fewer decisions about when to say yes and when to say no. Another trick that we learned from a START facilitator who's a neuroscientist is when it's time to transition your kids from what she describes as the merry-go-round of screens, use consistent cues, especially touch. So she recommends sitting next to them or touching their shoulder as they finish up their last round of a video game. And then follow this with some time outside or a quick race around the house to help their mind and body kind of reconnect so that they can be ready to re-engage with the offline world. Now, as much as we're talking about rhythms, there are going to be times when your family loses its rhythm. That's fine, of course. So give yourself grace. It's a perfect opportunity to show your kids that when life throws you curveballs, when things don't go according to plan, you don't give up. Jump back in where you left off and try again or tweak the rhythm if it wasn't working for you. Our final area, T, is time well spent. These days will be long and emotionally challenging, but if you can, as much as you can, we encourage you to try to think about how this can be time well spent for your family, both with your online time and your offline time. Here are some ideas in each of those categories. So, offline. First, I feel really pumped about this even though it's hard, but this is a great time to increase your kiddos' engagement with chores. Did you know that activities like chores are an integral part of your child's development? Just tell yourself that as they're complaining. My kids definitely don't whistle while they work, but studies show that children who do chores feel more connected to their families and are more successful in their careers as adults. So now might be a great time for them to start feeding the pet or loading the dishwasher or unloading it or dusting, with socks on their hands around the house. The next thing that I feel really excited about is building the muscles to let your kids be bored. An author recently shared, Kim John Payne was his name, that boredom is a child's doorway to deep creativity. They're bored for like a half an hour and then creativity breaks out. And he shared that this is even more important now than ever because if we can have the confidence, as he says, to not just go that knee-jerk reaction of giving an iPad or turning on the TV, but if we could let them work through it and get into a point of deep creative play, that's actually the way they relieve stress and the way they recover from anxiety. So it's really important now. The other thing I would say is if you're in a situation where you can go outside, consider having something like at least a 1-to-1 ratio of outdoor time to screen time. Being outside is so good for our mood, which is especially important these days, and it can help kids make trade-offs of, how much screen time do I want? Okay, then I'm gonna have to go play outside, so it can be really useful. Then some ideas online. Okay, one that's my favorite is, does your kiddo have a favorite video game or app that, in the busyness of life you've never tried? Well, surprise them. Play a game of Minecraft together. Learn the hot dog Mickey Mouse Club song dances and just bust it out. The more that you can learn about and engage in your kids' online world, especially as they grow older, the more fully you'll be able to guide and mentor them. It's awesome. Another thing I love is Zoom playdates. I'm guessing many of you are already doing this, but much of what we see online, unfortunately, even what I'm doing right now, is someone talking at you. And the more that it can be interactive, it's actually chemically proven that it's more that we build relationships. Now with littles, this can be really hard. This is maybe just about Zoom etiquette at first, that you don't just shove your tongue or your nostril at the screen. Maybe it's short and sweet at first. But then as your kids get a little older, you can provide a topic like show and tell or a joke session, would you rather questions, or a Mad Lib, and it can be so fun. Another online tip that we talk about a lot is thinking about ways that your kids can create rather than consume. So things like Mo Willems' lunchtime doodles where they're actually participating is so awesome. I know that these times are so hard and uncharted, and I am so thankful that you all have each other to work through this together. It doesn't make it easy, but in the hardship, we know that that's oftentimes where there's the most growth. Growth that doesn't feel good now, but feels good later. We hope that you'll be able to have some of that with digital health and screen habits too. Thank you so much on behalf of START for joining us. If you're interested in staying in touch for kind of tips and tricks and stories about this, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook at START:*Stand Together and Rethink Technology, or on Instagram at we.start.now. But one of the biggest things is we really are passionate about interactive communication, not just what we had to do today. So if you're interested in furthering this conversation with your table, with your MOPS group, with your school, feel free to go to our website, westartnow.org/get-started, and you can join a Zoom group or one of our START facilitators. We'll host it on Zoom, bring together your people, and you can talk about this and how you're navigating this in quarantine or even just beyond. Thank you so much. It was so nice to be with you, and good luck. We're in this together.
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. Add your name and still call the sea to still, the rage in me to still every wave. Add your name, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear in Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. And breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, and Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear in Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus. darkness tremble. Oh, yeah. You make the darkness tremble. Oh, you make the darkness tremble. And your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. And your name cannot be overcome. And your name is alive and forever lifted high. And your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. And your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive and forever lifted high. And your name cannot be overcome. And Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. And Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. And Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Every knee will bow, every tongue confess your name. Oh, Jesus, the name above all names.
Sing your name.
And your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. And your name cannot be overcome. And your name is alive and forever lifted high. And your name cannot be overcome.
Well, I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Oh, heaven comes to fight for me. Yeah, you see.
And I'm gonna see in the middle of the storm. And louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. 'Cause death is defeated, the King is alive.
You declare that truth with us this morning. Sing, I raise a hallelujah, everything inside of me.
I raise a hallelujah
With everything.
with everything inside of me. Yeah. I raise a hallelujah.
I will walk.
For I will watch the darkness flee. And I raise a hallelujah in the middle of the mystery. storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. 'Cause death is defeated, the King is alive.
Oh, the King is alive. I'll sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder,
I'll sing a little louder.
sing a little louder.
I'll sing a little louder.
I'll sing a little louder.
Yeah, I'll sing a little louder.
I'll sing
Come
a
on, you
little
sing.
louder.
I'll sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemy.
I'll sing a little louder.
Oh, louder than the unbelieving.
I'll sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Yeah, I'll sing a little louder.
Oh, heaven comes to fight for me.
I'll sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemy.
I'll sing a little louder.
Oh, louder than the unbelieving.
I'll sing a little louder.
And my weapon is a melody.
I'll sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for
I'll
me.
sing a little louder.
And I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder,
Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. 'Cause death is defeated, the King is. I'm gonna sing, go.
I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes,
Hope will arise.
death is defeated, the King is alive.
Oh, he's alive. I'll raise a hallelujah.
I raise a hallelujah.
I'll raise a hallelujah.
I raise a hallelujah.
I'll raise a hallelujah.
I raise a hallelujah.
I'll raise a hallelujah. Oh, we raise a hallelujah.
Oh, praise you, God. God, we love you. You're in control, and we just put our faith, God, in you, truly in this situation, in our families, in our homes, in the chaos and the craziness that we're going through right now. I just ask, Lord, that you would be our help. You would be the rock that we run to, the well that never runs dry. We love you, God. We give you all of our hearts and all of the glory, all of the honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Speaking of the craziness of life, this is our son Bear, and we're doing the same thing that a lot of y'all are doing right now, being at home with your kids and figuring it out. So not that this is our house, this is our church. But yeah. Thank you all for worshiping with us today, and we our hope and our prayers that this blessed your heart, and that now you can go and you can raise your hallelujah, and you can speak the truth of Jesus. So go and be blessed.